So the common ancestry is going to be the blue dog, the Scotch Collie. Really closely related to a Border Collie, but it's different. And it's what's in an Australian Shepherd and Blue Heeler. And this dog had a parent that was a Blue Heeler. It's a pretty interesting story. That I stumbled into the kind of dog because I was looking for an Australian dog, and Australian Shepherds aren't even from Australia. Why do they call them Australian Shepherds? Because the sheep that they were called Aussies. So sheepdogs are actually named after the type of sheep that they herd. Okay, so a collie is a sheep. Collie is a type of sheep. The Border Collie, just sort of a bastard name for a sheep. How'd you get involved with sheepdogs? Well, I got involved with sheepdogs when my girlfriend's dog was destroying her parents' house, and she'd just gone away to college. So he came up to live with us in Zachary. The next thing you know, I've got this totally neurotic, what looked like a Border Collie Australian Shepherd cross. I mean, that's what he looked like. But we found out later that he was a McNabb Shepherd, which is another California breed. What are these dogs bred for? They're bred for cattle, but they've got a lot of sheepdog in them too. So what they did was they refined the dog and gave it a stronger nose. So it's got hound dog in it and ridgeback, so that they could fend off the wild cats who were trying to poach off the cattle. And then they put some pit bull in there too. So there's all kinds of stuff in McNabb as you look at the history, which actually I printed out for you. Dina. McNabb was a family from Scotland. And they brought over all kinds of dogs because they had the best dogs. Is the McNabb their signature dog then? Yeah, the McNabb is people really don't even know what it is. But most of the ones you see nowadays are crossed with Border Collies, and they're all smooth-coated. So there were different varieties of coats. Just like an Australian Shepherd's got a long coat, the Blue Heeler's got a short coat. So depending on the smooth coat, different breeds have different names for rough coat. There's a rough-coated collie. But most of the dogs now are all dry coats or slick-coated, smooth-coated, however you want to look at it. It's a nice short coat like this, and they don't pick up birds. But they tend to be more of a cattle dog than a sheepdog. But you can use them on sheep. And I think a lot of people have seen them if they've ever watched the 49ers. They have a halftime frisbee show, and they've got a bunch of really nice McNabbs. And they've got some red ones. So they come in different colors, red, blue, and then black or white. So we always used to call it Border Collie-ish. You know, they look Border Collie-ish. This dog looks very Border Collie-ish in her face, too. I can see it on the side of the cross that they did with this dog. It's probably one of the most interesting crosses I've ever seen. And then I got into, training Charlie. So we were talking about Charlie. His team and stuff. Charlie was a basket case. He had bad nerves. He was a lot like Karma in a way that you'd look at him and he would almost pee and defecate to try to get away from you. He was terrified. His nerves were skittish. You know, people call it different things, but bad nerves is really what it translates into behavior.
What do you do to help a dog with bad nerves?
Well, first of all, you can't sort of reward that behavior. A lot of people show up when their dogs get nervous, so they learn the gate to show up. So in a lot of ways, you got to train them to go into a position and get them to sit and relax. You've got to actually teach them. They don't normally relax. They're in a high state of stress. The border collie type dogs, that happens when they're sedentary and stuck in a house all the time. So he was stuck in a garage and had nowhere to go with all his drive, and then he started ruining stuff. You know, so that's pretty much what you see in destructive behavior. It goes into ruining stuff or destroying their environment.
It's not the best dog for someone who can spend a lot of time with it outdoors.
No, they're the kind of dog that does really well if you go mountain climbing and or hiking up and that kind of stuff, because they're really active dogs. But they also make great frisbee dogs. You know, that's why I got into them. To be honest with you, they're like rocket ships. You teach them to get something, they can just go run up, jump up in the air, 9 feet in the air, and nail a frisbee. Bam.
Wow.
You know, so they're one of the most athletic dogs, but they do tend to run a little bit neurotic. In fact, the best ones really are slightly neurotic. And once you get that neurotic energy going, running in a circle around a herd of cattle, they're actually quite normal. But it took me probably 4 or 5 years to train my dog to be a normal dog. It didn't happen overnight. And then we got another dog. Really wasn't my dog. I mean, he wouldn't even barely come to me, And I would say come, and he'd go over to Leslie. He'd barely come. So she was a little bit of a magnet that I ended up learning how to use her to my advantage, and I taught him that if he behaved and calmed down, I would let him have her. So I used a similar approach, which is called abandonment training in the reverse, which is the bail on. The mom disappears or the owner disappears. So abandonment training is a thing that works really, really well if you teach the dog what's happening. But in the reverse, mom becomes a reward that when you start behaving, and you'd be surprised how quickly he figured out how to be smart to get her back. And he was a really, really smart dog. And then we got a little red heeler, my first dog, who was like a little computer chip that was so smart. I had her talking a lot like this dog. She could talk in different speeds. And she was a frisbee dog. It's sort of funny because on video, it almost looks like I'm cheating. Alright, so that's the low, quiet one. Huggies come and whoop. And then there's a speed. Okay? Quieter. Yeah. Still trying to get the growl. I don't have the growl yet, but I'll teach you that. See, I ran into this thing the other day, actually. It was really surprising. It was a research thing I was doing on the blue dogs in China. Its growl means something. I'm still trying to figure it all out, but it means something to the Chinese people, similar to yin and yang. But the growl is so important, and then I realized, people are always punishing their dogs for growling.
Yeah.
I taught my dog to growl. and I think that actually growling is part of the communication as well, that if you think about it, people that even, say they're really positive and stuff, when their dog growls, they're pretty hard on their dog. So I was realizing that growling was also part of speaking. They need to learn to speak. So I do it in reverse. I teach them to Okay. So that's just a little woof. There you go. There you go.